From an early age, The Sims really set me up for success. It was basically like adulting 101. It taught many of us the importance of building and maintaining our relationships, balancing our needs and responsibilities, all while trying not to set our house on fire, drown, or starve to death. But hey, isn't that what life's all about? So it got me thinking, could we find love, wealth, and build a life for ourselves starting with absolutely $0? Naturally, I jumped at the challenge and wanted to get right to work. I casually drafted up the most extravagant, most creative name my brain could possibly conceive and dived into the sim creation process. I set out to create a character with style, class, and a personality of a true gentleman. But there's just one problem. Bob's a prick. Unlike the real world, in The Sims when you first start out, you're handed $20,000. I was able to purchase a property for $2,000, but we needed to get creative in order to get rid of the rest of it. And there I was, lonely, scared, standing on my lot of empty grass, clinging to my only possession, a phone. I noticed a river behind my property. Somehow, I managed to Houdini a pole out of nowhere and thought I would just indulge in a little fishing, but I was interrupted by the sound of cackling. A group calling themselves the Welcome Wagon had wandered into my home. Normally, this sort of thing would have been completely ignored, but I saw cake and needed to check it out considering we have absolutely no food. It didn't take long. Our unwelcome visitors quickly realized what a joy my company was, eventually turning into one of those awkward situations where everyone is just kinda on their phones. But I'd had enough. If I planned to survive any longer than a night or two, I needed to find a way to start generating income. Selling fish and opening time capsules from dug up rocks in the neighborhood wasn't gonna get me very far. My first order of business was finding a way to sustain my needs. Luckily, the cake from our unwelcome guest would last me a while, but I was on the verge of pissing my pants, so I needed to act fast. With $38 to my name, I made my way across town to the local park. Shortly after I arrived, I realized I was in heaven. I had a toilet for pooping, a sink and someone's toothbrush to clean myself with. I even had a bench to sleep on undisturbed. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I used the time to wander the wilderness, collecting any rocks or frogs that I could sell for a few dollars in cash. I was a thief in the night, stalking the forest like a goddamn wolf, and I was on a mission. When I got tired, I slept. When I had to pee, it wasn't in my pants. When I got hungry, well, I ate my neighbor's cake. It was the perfect setup. I figured it was about time to take the next step in maximizing my earnings. I accepted a job offer to work as a live chat support agent making $34 an hour. It was then I received a call from a total stranger inviting me over to their house. I accepted the offer with pure selfishness, with my only intentions being a few hours of sleep in a warm bed or a warm shower. Maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't notice. Unfortunately, I wasn't that lucky, and the house had what seemed to be a 3-strike policy because eventually I was asked to leave the property. I then decided it would be appropriate to show my appreciation for their hospitality. I continued onward, roaming the streets collecting anything worth value. More rocks, frogs, and even flowers. I eventually stumbled upon a public garden that I gave a little TLC. My thought at the time was that I could either sell the fruit and vegetables or eat them if it came down to it. It was a win-win. The moment I had been waiting for eventually arrived. I had stockpiled enough cash to purchase a bed. The situation still wasn't ideal, but it was light years from sleeping on a park bench. I even had a nice place to sit and eat my cake. However, my time at the park wasn't over. In the coming days, I went to work, received a promotion, and in my spare time continued to lurk the streets in search of any signs of valuables. I even started my own garden on my property to have an extra source of reliable income. It was a slow grind, but it was finally starting to pay off. I was able to purchase a shower, a toilet, refrigerator, and even 4 walls with a roof. I was feeling on top of the world. My garden was growing by the day, thus, so were my funds, providing me with the ability to attain life's basic luxuries. A chair, a TV, a rug, and after some deep thought and careful calculations, I determined it was in my best interest to even quit my job at the call center. With the extra time, I could invest more into my garden and potentially double my profits. It was the perfect play. The next day, I had some visitors. And in the midst of the conversation, I had the realization that I probably need to start thinking about my future a bit more. How could I ever find a wife and have children looking like a Minecraft villager? It was time for a new look. I told my barber to give me the Heisenberg. He said, say less. And I was able to find some clothes that didn't scream, I like turtles. I was feeling successful for the first time, like a new man. I felt great. I was even achieving milestones. On a whim, I decided I wanted to try carpentry. Yeah, it didn't go so well. But with each passing day, my garden grew. And just like the garden, so did my responsibilities. I knew I was going to need some help, so I decided I was going to hire a gardener to do most of the work for me. With doing so, I had an enormous amount of time to invest into other activities. And after discussing things over with my plants, I decided it was time to invest a bit into our house with a remodel. And I splurged for the catalog's more luxurious items. But I grew bored just hanging around the house yelling at my gardener. I needed something productive to occupy my time. I took a job in the criminal career track as a tough guy making less than $10 an hour. It wouldn't bring me wealth, but I felt like this was my calling. So I hit the gym. If I was going to be fulfilling the role of a tough guy, I needed to look the part. Every day it was harvest, train. I was a well-oiled machine. Money was flowing in. I had bags of it. Life really couldn't get any better. Then one day, I received a knock on my door. It was Dina Caliente, and for whatever reason, she was smitten. We hit it off and one thing led to another and well, you know. With the thought of potentially expanding my family in the future and owning a bigger house, we needed a larger property. A family of 6 known as the Landgrabs owned the biggest property in the game, so naturally, I evicted them from their house and bulldozed it to the ground. The property would be a perfect location for my new mansion, so I got to work. It wasn't long before I was ready to move in. I was living like a king. Gourmet cooking, full in-home gym, a bathtub with jacuzzi jets, and with the last placement of a few new pieces of art, I had finally completed my lifelong aspiration of bearing a mansion. Then, an old friend stopped by to see the new place. She was admiring my fireplace when all of a sudden, she spontaneously combusted. I had to think quickly. I immediately began flailing around and decided the best course of action was to run manically to the front of my house where I could call 911 and watch from a safe distance. The fire department arrived, but they were too late, and honestly, these guys were pretty useless. I had to take action. And there she was. My dear friend who I was just laughing with moments before was now a centerpiece on my fireplace mantle. Things weren't all that bad though. That same night I received another promotion at work. I was now a minor crime lord, calling shots, and with a little reputation to my name, I celebrated by purchasing a bar with my insurance money from the fire. A toast to an old friend, if you will. Life was good, but I needed to maintain focus on my relationships, so I invited my girlfriend Dina over to see the new house. It was like we hadn't left each other in the first place, picking back up immediately where we left off. She was all I could really think about. I was in love, and that girl was an animal. We were inseparable. She was the yin to my yang and brought me out of my shell. The rest was history. And though I successfully was able to answer the question, can we build a life from $0? Our story, unfortunately, did not live happily ever after.